Hello and welcome. In the spirit of my brand new book, The Delicate Art of Transformation, I've been on a quest for truth. What does it actually take to create real, lasting transformation? And here you are on the precipice of something big. I don't think that's a coincidence that we should ignore. Welcome, my friend. Welcome to the True Transformation Summit. This is where true growth and transformation happens because sometimes it's about your mindset. You're working on your thoughts and your beliefs. Sometimes it's about connecting deeper with your body. Sometimes it's stepping into success and rewiring yourself for wealth. And sometimes it's a spiritual one. But when the right person says the right thing at the right time and it all clicks, those are the moments that make all the difference. And that is what this summit is here for. You're going to hear from some incredible experts who every single one I personally invited to be here because each of them have made an impact in my life. So listen with an open heart, do what they say, take what resonates, try the practices, get their free gifts, and let this space be the place where you find your next step. My name is Talia Joy. I'm your host. And if you want all the free gifts, the resources, and the only place where you can be entered for prizes, you can join the Insider Circle for free below. All right, without further ado, take a deep breath in. Think about what you are transforming, what you are here for. And let's dive into today's episode. Hello, Sheh. Welcome to the True Transformation Summit. How are you doing today, my beautiful friend?
I'm so good. I'm so excited for today. I feel like our energies are going to collide in the most beautiful way. This is not an accident at all. I'm so excited to support you in this. And actually, before we start, your book is on the way. So I'm very excited to read it. I'm thrilled for this summit that you're doing, but I'm also very blessed that after over 13 years, I've had not just a bird's eye view, but a front row seat to the transformation that you've had, and you've helped me so much in my own. So it's a blessing to support you in this way. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, you've got me all in my feels. Yes, Sheh and I are real life friends and have been, as you said, for like 13 or more years, and have had a lot of talks, a lot of times together. We've both seen each other through a lot. And so this is a really cool conversation because I wanted to have you on the show and have you in this summit because of, first of all, everything, of course, we're going to get into today and what you do, but your ability to lead with heart and to overcome things, if you feel like sharing as we go through what you've had to overcome, to stand up, to be visible, to share what's on your heart, and now helping other people to do that. And so I really wanted your voice in this because so many people, they may not have a business yet, or they may be bringing their voice into corporate. They may be just tiptoeing and really know there's something more to share. And your ability to do that through bravery and through heart, it's just amazing. So I wanted you in this summit. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm so excited for everything we're going to get into.
Thank you. I'm thrilled. I'm stoked. I'm excited to jam out with you. This is great.
Yeah, it's 1:11 too right now. So that's good.
Oh, perfect. That's not an accident either.
Oh, I love it. So Sheh, let's just start with a little bit about who you are and your business, what you do.
Thank you. I'm Sheh. The definition of my name is a brave thought. So that's become my brand. And what I do is I work closely with leaders. I'm a leadership coach, but I also consult on social impact and creating change in workplaces and society and the ripple effects of that. And then my most exciting thing that I do, aside from speaking on stages, which I know I told you years ago was going to be the biggest impact, but I'm realizing now that creating and facilitating workshops for organizations, progressive ones only, has actually been the most rewarding thing because you can see people shift their mindsets and practice a competency, and you can feel the change as it's happening versus just having lights on you and not being able to see people's faces and how it's actually impacting them. So that's been really cool. That's been the coolest thing so far.
That's really amazing. And that kind of taps on, where you came from, maybe sharing a little bit about how you did come from more of that corporate setting and now coming back to help in a different angle. That's a pretty neat change. So maybe share a little bit about that, where you came from.
Sure. I mean, it's interesting now. I speak to youth as well and folks that are emerging leaders because I genuinely feel like I started from the bottom. Now I'm here, right? I don't have a regular path that a lot of folks in corporate have come from. I started in retail at Lululemon back in the day and just really worked my way up in leadership. And even in positions where I didn't have a lot of influence, I really tried to show up as someone who folks would listen to and impact change no matter what seat I was in. And that allowed me to really grow and transform into a leader that now advises other leaders on how to do that. So that's been really neat. But
Mhm.
I have an HR background, a leadership background, an operations background, a diversity and inclusion background, which you know is incredibly important right now. Just progress of any kind as we slip back in society is very important, and reminding people that change is fun. This is why we signed up for leadership seats. We wanted to make the world a better place. We wanted to impact people. And if we're having fun with it and setting the vibe in the rooms that we're in, we're going to engage everybody along with us. So that's been really impactful for me to share with folks.
Yeah, that is so impactful. And you've just always been that change maker. I feel like even when I met you, we were both younger and we weren't fully embodied in, we're on a journey, but you're feisty that way and you've had to overcome so much yourself. And, so I feel like, it's just been such a neat journey to watch. And I'm curious as we kind of move forward with this, what do you feel as you sort of uncover that leadership within yourself? What do you think are some of those key parts that has allowed you to not maybe be as critical on yourself or whatever, just to stand up and shine? What do you think are some of those really important parts?
I think the first piece for me was really understanding myself and the barriers that were holding me back. And, we were talking before the recording started about how important it is that you're doing this transformation summit and all the different weeks and how they all play into each other, right? Regulating your nervous system, for one, recognizing the barriers that hold you back, that voice that you hear in your head saying, wait, you're not ready. That's not your voice. And really working on the healing to get past those pieces. I know you talk a lot in your on your podcast around health and self-care and the consistency around that and showing up for yourself. That was always the biggest piece for me, how showing up consistently for myself and my self-care and bringing my best to the rooms that I was in allowed me to bring out the best in others. And I think that's something that leaders probably don't focus on enough, particularly the ones that are feeling really depleted right now, really maybe not as engaged and not able to bring out engagement in others. It's probably because there's a huge piece of self-care missing. Because like I do, that glow up is from the inside every single time. Every time someone says I look good, I go, but I feel great, right? I try to remind people that it's about that. It starts with you and it starts on the inside. But you also have to recognize the barriers that hold you back. And, I've been very real with you about that for years now, but I struggle with things like imposter syndrome, visibility over the years. There are pieces around my culture with, elements like the evil eye and being careful as a woman not to boast too much and how much that was holding me back in rooms that I was in, right? Always trying to be proper and not shine as brightly as or brighter than I could. Those were things that I'm really excited to help women in particular get past because it's holding us back in so many ways. But I also had a lot of anxiety, social anxiety from a very young age. So overcoming that to now do what I do just reminds me how powerful we are as humans. And it just makes me want to bring it out in others even more because I know it's possible. I did it too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's scary at first. And I love that you talk about like a brave thought because it feels like that. We have these series of brave thoughts, brave actions. And I also like to just actually ask you, what does that mean to you? What is bravery even in this as a leader in your life? What does that mean to you?
For me, it's about showing up authentically. There were so many years that I felt like I was betraying myself and not saying the thing that I wanted to say, particularly if it was an outlier thought that felt, well, this is very different than what everybody else in the room is saying. And then you realize that you being brave and being bold invites other people to feel bold because you're setting that vibe. And I actually really noticed it. About a month ago, I was at a roundtable with a minister and I was one of the first 5 to speak. And the things I was saying was very different than what other folks in the room was saying, but I was passionate about it and I invited everybody into it. And what I noticed as folks went around the room is there were 2, I think even 3 people that said, similar to what Sheh was saying, or, how Sheh brought this piece up. And I realized that whether that was in their notes to say or not, in the few minutes of speaking that they had, it gave permission for people to advance a thought that was technically an outlier that probably wasn't on the page for them to say. And doing it in a way that makes everybody else feel like, I can be invited into this conversation as well. But for me, I've always had brave thoughts since I was little. I always felt like I was going to make it. I was going to have an impact. I didn't really know how. I knew the barriers I had to overcome to get there, and it all felt really big. And what I've realized, particularly, I know you journal a lot as well. I'm a big journaler. I don't know if journaler is a word, but it should be.
It is now.
It is now. But I will go back and read about the transformation and the changes. And what I've realized in my 40s is every single thing that I've worked through, that I've bounced back from, not just bounced back, but bounced forward from, right? That I've overcome, that change and transformation is constant. It's not just this one big thing or big moment or big conversation that you have with a coach. It's constantly happening. We're always evolving. I've seen it in you. I've seen it in me. Year after year, we're growing, we're developing, we're becoming who we're supposed to become. And that to me is really exciting, because even now, feeling like I'm in an incredible place, it gives me so much excitement for where I'm going, because I go, well, now that I have these tools, who I'm going to become is kind of epic and quite iconic, actually. And I can bring that out in others too.
That's so beautiful. And I just hear like self-leadership when you're talking about this self-care and self-leadership. And I watched you, and I think actually we were probably going up like through it at the same time. For me, 2025 was a freaking goo year. And I've seen you in transitions between certain career paths where you take some time off to just be, to go on walks, to look after yourself, to have some alone time. And you'll say like, I just need to settle for a second or look after myself or whatever before the next big thing. And you've had that self-awareness. And sometimes we're in that in between going, oh, I should be acting further. And like you said, you've suffered with imposter and all this, but I've seen you do that. And that type of self-care is self-leadership, which then makes you a bigger leader. Curious to know your thoughts on that.
I love that you said that, but I have to be real. Like those times, and I've done it between every single transition I've had, I was unburning out from burnout. Also, I was always going at a pace that was just way too hard, way too much, not really taking care of myself while I was working the hours and the weekends and the travel and all those pieces that came with the important seats. And I forgot that there's this other piece that comes from being still while you innovate. Right. And we forget about that a lot in workplaces. Like, we're going to innovate, but we're not going to give you any time to do it. Right. And that's a big problem. And it's important to look internally and go, what do I need to get to my next step? That self-care, those walks, that journaling, the coaches that I've had, the people that I surround myself with, the thoughts that I allow to get really brave, to spend time to create that next thing. And I always tell people, and I remind myself, it's like you're this slingshot, right? And you're being pulled back. And in that moment where you're being pulled back, you get to decide exactly where you want to go. And if you take this portion correctly as you're being pulled back and do the right things, when you catapult yourself forward, it's going to be epic. And it always is. The next step has always been so much more powerful. And I always feel so much more authentic in that new seat, in that new role, in that new venture for taking that time.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And that time, everyone, we can't rush the goo. There's a chapter in my book called You Can't Rush the Goo, because sometimes it might be a month off. Sometimes that might be 3 months. That might be a year. Like I really did take 2025 to goo, to be all through it. So sometimes giving yourself that space as you're talking about is just so important. I love that slingshot analogy too, because that pullback is actually what allows you to spring forward. And that's just powerful. And I'm also just hearing to be a good leader means to be a good self-leader. And as you said, sometimes we forget that as leaders. We're going, we're burnt out. And so to be a good leader, to impact the world, you have to first be a good self-leader.
Right. And you've seen it. You've seen it with leaders that you've had, right? They ask you how you are, but they're too busy to hear the answer. So you're forced to answer with fine and good. Right? But you don't actually feel seen or understood in that moment. Or maybe you don't get a lot of time with that boss. And those few minutes, if they actually paused and made you feel seen, you might say something or ask a question that could actually impact them in their seat as well. Because I think the impact is always two ways. Every conversation. And you see it too with the people you coach. You're just as impacted as they are, right? It's the same thing in a leadership seat. You have a moment to high five someone, that does more for them than you'll ever know. You take a moment to help them fix an issue they're having with a coworker. That might mean they go home and at the dinner table, instead of complaining about this coworker they don't get along with, they're actually present with their family and their kids. And so you forget the ripple effect of what giving a moment of your time and being present and showing up as your best self does for others, and the ripple effect it has on society. And that's something that I'm excited to keep talking about. It's really important.
Yeah. Wow. It really makes me feel like you're sharing of and embodying the difference between just saying good shit and being a leader. Like you might be innovative, and I'm like putting my thumb out, like this idea, and you might have your pillars to success. But like you said, if you're not listening, if you're not taking a second to check in with the team or check in with, the people around you, the people you're impacting, truly listen, what kind of leader are you really?
Right. And how are you going to engage them to care about the things you care about? Because all of a sudden you have this big transformation you want to make in your organization or in your business or whatever it is that you do, right? It could be a project, it could be all encompassing. But if you can't get folks engaged and to care about the things you care about, you're not going to get there. And typically, this is where I typically step in because folks tend to miss these first few steps. You have to help people build the skills around communication and asking the right questions and inviting people in and being inclusive in the way that you lead the change, constantly checking in, right? All those pieces really matter. Building relationships, giving feedback. Before you're able to instigate a major change or influence change, you have to feel influential, but you have to have the skill set, and your team needs to have the skill set, particularly your middle managers and a lot of organizations, larger ones, to lead that shift. And I think that's where a lot of folks fall flat. They don't ask the right questions from the start. Like, whose voice are we missing at the table before we move forward? Right? Who is this going to indirectly impact who is not here? And if we take the moment to make sure they feel heard, could we be even more successful in this shift, in this change, in engaging their entire department, right? These are the little things that are actually quite huge. And it starts again with who you are and how you show up. Because if you show up and you say, well, this is the change we're making and this is why it matters, you're probably not going to remind people that it's important. And I think where some organizations are having a lot of traction is they bring things back to purpose, right? This is the purpose of the organization, our vision, our mission, our values. A lot of folks talk about that a lot. Great. Don't stop doing that. But the piece that people tend to miss, especially today, is focusing on the impact of that change and the ripple effects of the impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is possible when the change happens? Getting them excited to see that vision is going to get them engaged very differently than just tying it back to your purpose.
Yeah. And I'm hearing for people like myself or entrepreneurs that aren't necessarily in a corporate or in a large organization, getting people enrolled in the possibilities. And I know for myself, the times that I'm brought to tears with the results my clients have is when I think about that, how it made them a more patient mother, or how it made them able to start a business or believe in themselves, stop shaming themselves. Like when I see the impact that has then in their relationships, in their career, that's what really drives me to be a good leader and to help people as well. So whether it's like an organization, it's like thinking bigger as a leader, not just what's in it for me and my methodologies, but as you're saying, listening and making that change in their lives and that ripple effect. It makes me excited, and probably for you too, right? Excited to dive into an organization, make it better, or to help your clients because it has a huge impact.
But to your point, because I work one-on-one with folks too, and not just women anymore, men as well. And it's interesting to see the shifts between men and women and what those conversations look like. But what I'm finding is folks are having a hard time really sharing their impact, sharing their value, advocating for themselves, feeling comfortable being visible enough and saying the things they need to say to get the shift. Because most of us aren't trying to be gazillionaires, right? A lot of folks are trying to go for, and I remember making 50K not that long ago and trying to get to a place where I was making 75, right? Knowing that was going to shift things. Folks are trying to go from 75 to 85, 95 to 125, right? 125 to 200. Like every shift, whether small or big, is huge for someone's life, for someone's family, for someone's peace of mind. And so sometimes just helping people get to a place where they can advocate for themselves and feel like they have a little bit more agency and power in their seat just allows them to pull their shoulders back a little bit more and show up as who they want to be and be authentic in how they speak about themselves and not feel bad about bragging about what makes you great, right? Which is something I find a lot of people have a hard time with. Or recently I did a coaching with someone who had a really big performance review coming up that was going to impact a really big shift in the role. And when I asked, how are you going to share all the pieces that you're doing and how that impacts the work and the bottom line? They said, well, my boss knows what I do. I said, oh, okay, this is where we're falling short. Because people assume that your leaders know what you do just because they maybe wrote your job description 5-10 years ago. But there are so many nuances and gray matter between the black and white lines in a job description of what you do, whether it's stepping into other departments, developing other people, right? Helping others show up as their best selves. Think of all the different impacts you're having. And if you're not able to communicate that, it's probably going to be difficult for you to advocate for that extra 10 grand, which could have a huge difference on your life. And I know you've seen that too in your own growth financially. Every extra piece that we make has had an exponential impact on our lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like for my business, the question that it's sent me to like tears. It's like, how do I describe what I do? And in some contexts, it's easier and not. And I joke here that like the thing I don't want people to ask me is like, oh, what do you do? Like out in the world, because I just want to panic and say life coach and run away. Because sometimes I'm joking, I'm getting better at it. But sometimes it is hard to translate that. And like you're saying, whether you're coming into an organization or you're coaching people one-on-one, really translating that and going after that bigger why and talking about it and standing, like you said, celebrating what you do, advocating for what you do. It just makes all the difference. It's huge. And I love that you touched a second ago about standing up, because that's what I was going to ask you as we kind of start to wrap this up. I was going to say and ask, when people have a brave thought, when there's something that they want to share, whether it's online on their podcast or it's in their organization, they have an idea to bring and they're scared. What is that? What are some of those key parts of that when it comes to saying the brave thing, doing the brave thing, will ruffle some feathers, but it's, sacred and deep in your heart? Just any words you have for someone in that position.
Sure. I mean, for me particularly, it's been about not betraying myself anymore and recognizing the power that comes with sharing. So some of the most powerful leaders or moments of leadership I've witnessed in rooms isn't always the CEO or the executive in the room. Sometimes it's that staff member that's willing to say that thing or willing to bolster someone else's idea or bring the room back to a thought where someone was interrupted and we can go, well, hang on a second, Talia had a really great point. And let's go back and riff off of that for a minute because it's different than what everyone else is saying, but we should stay here for a few moments, right? Setting the vibe for the room and shifting what safety feels like is typically a wonderful start, because if you don't feel safe in the room, often you have to set that safety, right? You have to find a way to feel safe, to bring out the best in you, to bring out the best in others. But the biggest thing to overcome that starts with transforming yourself from the inside out, really working on your own thoughts to be brave, right? The thoughts that are holding you back are typically not yours. So exploring that, healing that, and remembering that these moments all lead to something. You may say something and it doesn't have traction, and that's okay. You don't see that as a failure. You find 2 or 3 other ways to come back at it, right? You come back a week later to the CEO and you say, that thought I had the other day, I actually thought about a different thing that I could say right now that would impact you. Or I found this article that was bolstering what I was saying, and I think this angle might really help get across what we were talking about, and I'm really willing to do the work to get there. Because I think what folks think about in the room, whether in, is they assume that the people don't necessarily want to hear their brave thoughts. But I try to come at a room remembering that a lot of folks, everyone is a good person, but some folks are learning how to be better leaders. Right? And having that mentality allows me to have a lot of empathy for people and be incredibly patient and not lose hope in them. So that means even if my message isn't received the way I want it to be received, I can go back at it. I can find a different way to have traction. And then sometimes if it's a toxic environment, right? And this is a different time to be talking about this because it's a tough time in the economy and people are afraid to change jobs, but you can set yourself up for your next step. Because if it's not an area or an industry or a workplace where you feel you can have any traction and shine and really make the changes that you want to make, sometimes you got to take your greatness elsewhere and have the bravery to do that and make that shift. And every time that I've done that in my life, it's had significant impacts on my journey, right? Recognizing that you can make a difference in moments is big. And when you see that happening for the first few times, you'll be braver to keep going it. And I will say this because you and I are a testament to this. Who you surround yourself with has a big difference and makes a big difference on who you become, right? What you ingest, not just food, but social media and everything else, and the thoughts around you, right? Including from your friends, makes a big difference. And so it starts there. If you're not feeling like your thoughts are brave enough, you're probably not surrounded by the people who are bolstering them or making you feel safe enough to be you, which is something that I'm grateful we've always done for each other. And I can see us continuing to do for the rest of our lives. It's so important. And being brave enough to cut out the folks that are not helping you in that way, or at least just pull back a little bit. It's not always about cutting out, but recognizing that maybe they're not seeing me for who I am and I got to stay closer to the folks who are. That's a really big decision that will impact your future.
I love that. That's so powerful. And it's so true. And touching back on, how you said you can come back around to something if it doesn't land or whatever. Yeah. Something I've always seen in your message is how when you say your brave thought, you inspire others to do the same. And I think that's something we don't always think of. We sometimes think of it just like our clients, or will my idea get picked up or not? But by saying the thing, even if you're shot down, you show other people in the room that you can do that. And speaking of creating safety, as you talk about, I feel like that creates safety, you being vulnerable. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that we speak on for leaders, but it's for every single person in the room, right? Like when I'm speaking at a graduation event, I'm reminding the students that are about to enter the workforce that they can have power in that seat, bolstering the point, fixing the vibe in the room, saying the thing that's a little brave. We have enough information to move forward on this really groundbreaking piece. Even if we don't have all the pieces together, what's the next small step that we can take, right? And then making sure that you're leveraging the folks that you're around, right? Like being careful about recognizing that you can have an impact in every seat that you're in, and you can have a big impact with the messages that you're giving, but you have to believe them yourself. And so this is where you have to start with almost faking it till you make it. I don't love that term, but what I mean when I say that is you pull your shoulders back, you put your chin up, you come in with the messaging that has the power of your body language behind it too, your vibe. If I walk into a room and I'm really shy and I say, well, this is the idea I had, and I'm really sorry to bring it up. And right, you see that so much. But if you actually start a little bit bolder, go, if I may, there's a point we're not making here that I would really like to add to the table. And here it is, right? So how you share your message will have a major impact too, and the voice that you use. But the more you practice that, the easier it gets. So you have to start somewhere. You have to start in your own way. And for some folks, that's on social media, spreading the message that you can and spreading who you are in that way. And others, it's in the workplace. And then there's folks like you who are making the world a better place by transforming people's lives. So back to what you were saying, if you're having a hard time explaining what you do, call me up, tag me in, let me help you, because I've been witness to it over and over again.
You have been. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I love how you're talking about this and just taking it moment by moment, knowing that brave thought is something that needs to come out, or that idea. And just knowing, I think it's also, I'm kind of hearing like self-trust, like going in there, as you said, putting your shoulders back and just knowing, like, if I may, I want to add something to the table. It's this layer of self-trust we put into action of like, I trust myself. And even if you fumble and the idea gets shot down, that's not the point. It's about being brave within yourself and speaking what's on your heart and having a seat at the table and really, like leading with that heart and leading with that impact that you talk about. Oh, it's just so powerful. So is there anything else that you want to say? I mean, I know we could chat for hours because we literally do. We have girl weekends and we just chat for days, literal days. But is there anything in this conversation that's appropriate for the public? Just kidding. Is there anything for this conversation that's unsaid when it comes to true transformation in the way you lead?
Well, I think the last thing I want to say that I was thinking about this morning is how showing up as your authentic self and transforming into who you're becoming allows you to create the business that you want, right? The environment you want if you're in a workplace, but if you're someone like you and I who own our brands, creating that from the ground up in a way that's true to you allows you to get really clear about who you're not for. And then when you figure that out, it starts attracting who you are for and the people who see your true genius and love what you bring to the table and are willing to pay top dollar for it. So creating space for that is really important. But if you're showing up as someone that you're not, what I've learned the hard way is you're also attracting the folks that you don't necessarily want to work with or should work with. Don't you find that to be true?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. We can end on that note if we both agree so boldly.
Oh, it's so true though, and even for people, I've had clients that are tattoo artists or, physical, like, a canvas artist, and people that when you're being you and charging what you deserve and what feels good for you, you attract people that are like, sure, I'll buy your painting for $1,000. Sure, I'll pay, whatever it is that you're asking. Whereas when you're nickel and diming, when you're under lowballing, and then for me, I would lowball and then be resentful. So that's like a great dynamic for a business and for a life force. But when you stand in your worth, in your authenticity as you're speaking, people come forward that go, sure, no problem. Like payment's been sent. Thanks so much. Whereas when you're underballing, then you get, well, can I maybe 50% off because it's a Tuesday? And you're going, no, it's a different level of client. And also if you're a keynote speaker, it's a different level of listener, someone how their ears are turned on to what you're saying. It just changes the dynamic. So yeah, I definitely agree.
And it allows you to walk into rooms that you're actually safe in and work with people who are excited to work with you. And that makes the biggest difference in how you show up. Because if you feel safe and people are excited to see you, you're like, hey, everybody, let's get going. How cool is this? Right? Which is very different than walking in trying to convince people of your worth. And that's something that I just don't do anymore. And I know that that's a privileged thing to say. I get that. But the more I was able to build that and stay true to myself, the easier it became to get to that place.
Yeah. And you've worked for that. I mean, privileged or not, you've worked for that, and it hasn't always been easy. And that's what we're talking about in this whole summit is transformation. We start a place and we go through a process and we come out on the other side, in a different place than what we started. And so you have, walked this, and now you're making such an impact in the world. And it's just such an honor to be your friend and to just have this conversation. So thank you again, Sheh, for everything you shared today and the work you do. You make an absolute difference in the world. I've seen it firsthand. You make a difference, and I'm so acknowledging of you for that.
Ditto, my friend. I'm so honored to be your friend, and I'm so honored to see you on this journey and be part of this. And I couldn't be more proud of everything that you do and how much good you do for the world, because the ripple effect is huge. And I feel like we're just getting started, even though we're at this, it feels like a peak in our work and in our self-worth. But I really feel like we're just getting started. That's the piece that's most exciting when you think about transforming and what's ahead if you keep transforming at this level, right?
Yeah, it's so exciting. Thank you. Yeah, it really is. And you are contributing a prize this week. So let us know what one lucky person is winning.
Well, I would love to contribute. I love that you're doing this, and thanks for the opportunity. I would love to give a special listener a half-hour coaching session, which is valued at $222. And it could be career coaching, work coaching, whatever you'd like. We'll just jam out for 30 minutes and we'll do our best to help you become who you're becoming and be a tiny part of that journey and give you a taste of what I do. So that's what I'm contributing this week.
Thank you so much. That's so generous. Thank you. Everybody, to be entered for prizes, you just need to be in the insider circle. So if you're in the insider circle, you're already entered to win and you will be notified for the winner. So thank you again, Sheh. This has been amazing. I hope everybody, hears you and follows along. And on that, where can they follow along on your journey if they want to check you out? Where do you hang out online?
Thank you so much. It's at A Brave Thought on Instagram. You can certainly follow at Sheh Shojaee as well. Although I'll warn you, she's pretty corny and cute. So if you don't like that, don't follow. But A Brave Thought is very bold if you'd like to follow me there. On LinkedIn at A Brave Thought as well. And then there's YouTube coming out too with some really cool stuff if you want to get started on following me there.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll put all that in the show notes. All right. Thank you, Sheh. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Thanks to you. Love you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in to the True Transformation Summit. Make sure to take what this guest said, implement it into your life, check the show notes for their gift and to follow along on the journey, and make sure to tune in to the next guest episode. Namaste.